The radar screen pulsed green against Lieutenant Commander Maya Reeves's face as Hurricane Helena screamed toward the Virginia coastline. Outside the operations center at Naval Station Norfolk, rain hammered the reinforced windows like artillery fire. The base had gone into lockdown 3 hours ago. Every vessel secured, every unit grounded. Protocol was absolute during Category 4 storms. No exceptions, no deviations, no heroes. Maya's fingers traced the edge of her coffee cup, now cold. 10 years she'd worn the uniform. 10 years since Commander David Harlow had stood in front of her graduating class at Annapolis and said those words that still burned in her memory like acid. Some of you don't belong here. You'll wash out within 5 years. Statistics don't lie. His eyes had found hers in that moment, deliberate and dismissive. She'd been the only woman of color in that room. The emergency channel crackled to life, breaking through her thoughts. Static. Then a child's scream, piercing and desperate. "Please, someone! Water's rising. Daddy won't wake up." Maya's hand moved to the transmit button before her brain could stop it. "This is Station Norfolk. Identify your location." More static. The voice came again, younger than she'd initially thought. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. "The bridge. We went under the bridge. Car's sinking. Please?" Every protocol in the book screamed at her to relay this to Coast Guard. But the Coast Guard was already stretched impossibly thin, and that bridge, the James River Bridge, was 30 minutes away in good weather. In this storm, it might as well be on another planet. She glanced at the duty officer, Lieutenant Parker, hunched over weather reports. He hadn't heard the transmission. The child's voice had come through her personal headset, routed through a backup frequency most people didn't monitor. Maya made her decision in the space between heartbeats. She was out of the operations center before anyone could question her, moving through the rain-lashed parking lot toward the rescue vehicles. The keys to the emergency response truck hung where they always did, tagged for authorized use only during active missions. This wasn't an active mission. This was career suicide. The truck's engine roared to life. Maya pulled out of the base, her security clearance getting her through the gate with minimal questions. The guard probably assumed she had orders. By the time anyone realized she didn't, she'd either be a hero or court-martialed, possibly both. The highway was a river. Helena's outer bands had already dumped 8 inches, and the worst was still offshore. Maya's hands gripped the wheel as the truck hydroplaned through standing water. The James River Bridge emerged from the darkness ahead, its lights still functioning despite the chaos. Below it, barely visible through the sheets of rain, she could make out the dark shape of a vehicle half submerged in the swollen river. She parked on the shoulder and grabbed the rescue gear. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet the moment she stepped out. Rope, flotation devices, emergency medical kit. She worked automatically, muscle memory from 1,000 training drills taking over. The descent to the riverbank was treacherous. Mud sucked at her boots. Tree branches, torn loose by the wind, became projectiles. But Maya kept moving, kept pushing, because somewhere in that sinking car was a child who'd managed to find a radio frequency and call for help. The water reached her waist as she waded in. The current pulled at her legs, trying to drag her downstream. The car, a black SUV, was tilted at a 45-degree angle, its front end completely submerged. The rear passenger window showed a small face pressed against the glass. The child. Maya secured the rope around her waist and pushed forward. The water rose to her chest, then her neck. She reached the vehicle and pulled herself along its side until she could grip the door handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. She smashed the window with her elbow, ignoring the pain as glass shredded her sleeve. Small hands grabbed at her immediately. "Help us! Help Daddy and Mama!" "I've got you," Maya said, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "One at a time. You first." She pulled the child, a girl, maybe 7, through the broken window. The little girl clung to her like a barnacle. Maya half swam, half crawled back to shore, using the rope as a guide. She deposited the girl on solid ground, wrapped her in an emergency blanket, and went back. The mother came next, unconscious but breathing. Maya dragged her from the car with strength she didn't know she possessed, her training overriding the burning in her muscles. 2 down, 1 to go. The father was trapped in the driver's seat. The front of the car was completely underwater now. Maya took a deep breath and went under, her fingers working blindly to release the seatbelt. It wouldn't budge. She surfaced, gasped for air, and dove again. This time the belt released. She grabbed the man under his arms and pulled. He was heavy, dead weight. His hooded jacket made him even harder to grip. But Maya refused to let go. She kicked hard, propelling them both toward the surface. They broke into the air together. Maya's lungs burned as she dragged him toward shore. The little girl was screaming now, calling for her daddy. Maya got him onto the muddy bank and immediately started chest compressions. Water spilled from his mouth. She tilted his head back, gave 2 rescue breaths, and returned to compressions. "Come on," she muttered. "Come on, come on." He coughed. Water erupted from his lungs. He rolled onto his side, retching and gasping. Alive. Maya sat back on her heels, her whole body shaking from exhaustion and cold. The little girl rushed to her father, crying and holding his arm. The mother was starting to stir, groaning softly. They'd made it. All of them. The father pushed himself up slowly, one hand going to his hood. He pulled it back, and in the beam of Maya's waterproof flashlight, she saw his face clearly for the first time. Commander David Harlow, 10 years older. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But unmistakably him. The man who'd told her she'd never make it. The man who'd made her first year in the Navy a living hell with his doubt and dismissal. The man who'd transferred out just before she'd proven him wrong with a stellar service record. He stared at her, recognition dawning slowly in his eyes. Lieutenant Reeves? She didn't correct him about her rank. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The universe had just handed her something she'd never expected. David Harlow, vulnerable and in her debt. And somewhere in the back of her mind, beneath the training and the duty and the exhaustion, a small dark voice whispered, "Now we're even." No, not even. Now you owe me everything. Naval Station Norfolk stretched across more than 4,000 acres of Virginia coastline, a city unto itself. Maya had spent a decade learning its rhythms, the morning colors ceremony at 0800, the flight patterns of FA-18s from Oceana Naval Air Station, the eternal smell of salt and diesel fuel. The base represented order, hierarchy, precision. Everything in its place. She'd needed that structure after her childhood in Atlanta, raised by a grandmother who cleaned offices at night and a mother who disappeared for weeks at a time. The military promised stability, purpose, a chance to prove that she was more than the statistics that said girls like her didn't make it. David Harlow had represented everything she wasn't. Third-generation Naval Academy, father an admiral, connections that opened doors before he even had to knock. When he'd singled her out that day at Annapolis, it hadn't been random. It had been deliberate, a reminder that she was an outsider in his world. The emergency shelter at Norfolk High School smelled of wet bodies and fear. Maya had insisted on bringing the Harlow family here after stabilizing them at the scene. Protocol required hospital evaluation, but the hospitals were overwhelmed. The shelter had Navy medical personnel. It would suffice. She watched from across the crowded gymnasium as a corpsman checked Harlow's vitals. His wife, Maya had learned her name was Catherine, sat wrapped in blankets, holding their daughter Emma close. Harlow kept glancing toward Maya, his expression unreadable. Lieutenant Parker found her near the coffee station. His face was tight with barely controlled anger. "You want to explain what the hell you were thinking? There was a family drowning. There were protocols. Chain of command. A dozen reasons you should have stayed put." Parker's voice dropped. "Captain Morrison wants to see you. 0800 tomorrow. He's talking Article 92. Failure to obey orders. A career ender." "Understood," Maya said. Parker studied her. They'd served together for 3 years, developed a working relationship built on mutual respect. Was it worth it? Maya looked back at the Harlow family. Emma had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder. Catherine was crying quietly. Harlow was staring at his hands. "Yes," Maya said. After Parker left, she allowed herself to sit. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. The cut on her arm from the car window throbbed beneath the hasty bandage. She should go home, shower, sleep. Instead, she pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Commander Rachel Torres, JAG officer and one of the few people at Norfolk she considered a friend. The text was simple. Need legal advice. Might be facing Article 92. Torres' response came within minutes. Did you save someone? 3 people. Then we'll make it work. Call me tomorrow. Maya pocketed her phone and closed her eyes. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. But beneath that exhaustion was something else. Something that had been dormant for 10 years. David Harlow owed her his life. More importantly, he owed her his daughter's life. She thought about the Article 92 charge, thought about her career hanging by a thread, thought about how easily Harlow could make this all go away with a single phone call to the right people. He'd left active duty 5 years ago. She'd kept track, but his father was still Admiral James Harlow, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations. One word from that family, and Captain Morrison would drop the charges before they were even formally filed. One word. All she had to do was ask. Or she could let Harlow volunteer it. Let him feel the weight of obligation. Let him understand what it meant to need something from someone you'd once dismissed. Lieutenant Commander Reeves? Maya opened her eyes. Catherine Harlow stood before her, still wrapped in the emergency blanket. Up close, she was beautiful in that effortless way wealthy women often were. Good bones, clear skin, the kind of polish that came from private schools and country clubs. Mrs. Harlow. Catherine, please. She sat down without invitation. I wanted to thank you, for Emma, for all of us. Just doing my job, ma'am. David says you broke protocol to come get us, that you could face consequences. Interesting that he'd shared that. It was the right call in the moment. Catherine's eyes, a startling green, studied her with uncomfortable intensity. David also says he knows you, from Annapolis. He was my instructor, briefly. He says he may have been hard on you. Maya allowed herself a thin smile. The academy was hard on everyone, but especially on you. The words hung between them. Catherine wasn't stupid. She'd sensed something beneath the surface, some history that went beyond standard military training. Mrs. Harlow, he's terrified, Catherine interrupted. Not of the storm, of you, of what you might say, of what you might do. She leaned forward. I don't know what happened between you two, but I know my husband. He carries guilt like other people carry wallets. Whatever he did to you at Annapolis, it's been eating at him for years. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd imagined many scenarios over the years, confronting Harlow, hearing him apologize, watching him squirm. But she'd never imagined this, his wife confessing his guilt on his behalf. I don't want anything from your husband, Maya said. Catherine's laugh was bitter. Yes, you do. Everyone wants something. The question is whether you'll ask for it or whether you'll make him offer it first. Before Maya could respond, Emma appeared, rubbing her eyes. Mama, Daddy wants to talk to the lady who saved us. Catherine stood, gathering her daughter close. Thank you again, Lieutenant Commander, for everything. She paused. My husband is a good man, but he wasn't always. Sometimes people need a second chance to show who they really are. She walked away, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. David Harlow approached slowly, his movements careful. He'd changed into dry clothes from the shelter's donation pile, sweatpants and a Norfolk State University hoodie that hung loose on his frame. He looked smaller than she remembered, more human. Lieutenant Commander, he said, I heard you made rank. Congratulations. Commander Harlow. It's just David now. I left active duty 5 years ago. He gestured to an empty chair. May I? Maya nodded. He sat, and for a long moment neither spoke. Outside, the wind howled as Helena made landfall. Inside, dozens of displaced families huddled together, waiting for morning. I owe you an apology, David finally said. For Annapolis, for the things I said, the way I treated you. Why? Maya asked. Why did you single me out? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because you reminded me of everything I wasn't. You were there because you wanted it, needed it. I was there because it was expected. Third-generation academy graduate, son of an admiral. I'd spent my whole life following a path someone else had laid out. He looked at her. And then I saw you. So hungry, so determined. And I hated that. Hated that you had something I'd never had. So I tried to break you. You almost succeeded. I know. And I'm sorrier for that than you'll ever understand. Maya felt the anger she'd carried for a decade start to crack. Not break, not dissolve, but crack, like ice under pressure. Beneath it was something she hadn't expected. Pity. David Harlow had spent his life in a cage of expectations. She'd spent hers fighting to be let in. They'd both been prisoners, just of different kinds. "Your daughter is beautiful," Maya said. His face transformed. "Emma. She's 7. Smartest kid you've ever met. Wants to be a marine biologist. And your wife, Catherine. We met during my last deployment. She was doing volunteer work at a field hospital in Bahrain. Civilian doctor. She saw past the uniform to whatever was underneath." He smiled sadly. "Which turned out to be not very much. I left the Navy because I realized I was miserable. Spent the last 5 years trying to figure out who David Harlow is when he's not Commander Harlow. Did you figure it out?" "I was starting to. Then this storm hit. And now," he gestured around the shelter, "now I'm back in your world, and you're the one with the power." He met her eyes. "I heard about the Article 92. I can fix that. One phone call to my father, and Captain Morrison drops the charges." There it was. The offer. The debt acknowledged. Maya felt the weight of the moment. She could take the easy path, let him make his call, save her career, or she could make him sweat, make him understand what it felt like to need something from someone who had every reason to deny it. "I'll think about it," she said. The surprise on his face was almost worth the 10 years of anger. Almost. Captain Morrison's office overlooked the piers where destroyers and carriers sat like sleeping giants. Maya stood at attention, her uniform crisp despite 3 hours of sleep. Morrison, 56, balding, with the weathered face of a man who'd spent decades at sea, studied her from behind his desk. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, you violated direct orders during a Category 4 hurricane. You took an emergency response vehicle without authorization. You endangered yourself and potentially diverted resources from other emergencies." He paused. "Do you have anything to say?" "No excuse, sir. I heard a child in distress and responded." "You heard a child and decided you knew better than standing protocols established for exactly these situations." Morrison's voice was flat, controlled. "The Coast Guard could have handled it." "With respect, sir, the Coast Guard was 30 minutes away. The car was sinking. The child would have drowned." "You don't know that." "Yes, sir, I do." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Your certainty doesn't excuse insubordination." Maya said nothing. There was nothing to say. He was right. She'd broken the rules. That the rules had been stupid and inflexible didn't change the fact that she'd broken them. "I'm recommending an Article 92 charge," Morrison continued. "Failure to obey a lawful order. You'll face a court-martial. In the meantime, you're suspended from duty pending the investigation." The words hit her like a physical blow. Suspended. In 10 years of service, she'd never been suspended. Never even received a formal reprimand. "Understood, sir." Dismissed. Maya saluted and turned to leave. "Lieutenant Commander." She stopped. "Off the record?" Morrison's voice had softened slightly. "You did a brave thing. A stupid, reckless, career-destroying brave thing. But brave, nonetheless." It was small comfort. Outside Morrison's office, Commander Rachel Torres waited. She fell into step beside Maya as they walked through the administrative building. "How bad?" Torres asked. "Article 92, court-martial, suspended pending investigation." "Damn." Torres was quiet for a moment. "Okay, here's what we do. We argue that the order to stay grounded during the storm was a general order, not a specific directive to you. We argue that you exercised reasonable judgment in responding to an immediate threat to civilian lives. We argue that—" "Rachel." Torres stopped. "What?" "I can make this go away. One phone call." Understanding dawned in Torres's eyes. "The family you saved. Someone with pull?" "Former commander. His father is a 2-star. "Then make the call." But Maya couldn't. Not yet. Because making the call meant giving David Harlow what he wanted. A chance to clear his conscience, to balance the scales. And she wasn't ready to give him that. Not after 10 years of carrying the weight of his doubt. She wanted him to feel what she'd felt. Uncertainty. Helplessness. The knowledge that your future rested in someone else's hands. "I need time," Maya said. Torres grabbed her arm. "Time for what? To make a point?" This is your career, Maya. I know what it is. Then stop playing games and save it. Maya pulled free. I'll handle this my way. She left Torres standing in the hallway and walked out into the gray morning. Hurricane Helena had moved on, leaving behind flooded streets and uprooted trees. The cleanup would take weeks. The rebuilding, months. Some things, once broken, never fully healed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Lieutenant Commander Reeves? Speaking. This is Catherine Harlow. I was wondering if you'd like to meet for coffee. There's something I need to discuss with you. Maya's instincts screamed warning. Regarding what, Mrs. Harlow? My husband, and what you're planning to do to him. The directness was surprising and intriguing. I'm not planning to do anything to your husband. But you could. That's the point, isn't it? You have power over him now. The question is what you'll do with it. Maya found herself smiling despite everything. You're very perceptive. I'm a surgeon. Reading people is part of my job. Catherine paused. There's a coffee shop on Colley Avenue that survived the storm. 3 o'clock? I'll be there. The coffee shop, a local place called Bean There, was mostly empty. Afternoon sun slanted through windows still covered with plywood. Catherine Harlow sat in a corner booth, 2 cups already waiting. She looked different out of the emergency blanket. Composed, professional. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore slacks and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary. Thank you for coming, Catherine said as Maya slid into the booth. Your timing is interesting. You mean the fact that my husband is facing a court-martial, and I'm reaching out to the woman who saved his life, but could also save his reputation? Catherine smiled. I don't believe in subtlety, Lieutenant Commander. Life's too short. Maya sipped the coffee. It was good, strong and black the way she liked it. Somehow Catherine had known. What do you want, Mrs. Harlow? I want to understand what my husband did to you that makes you willing to throw away your career rather than let him help. The question was so direct, so stripped of pretense, that Maya found herself answering honestly. He told me I didn't belong, that I'd wash out, that statistics didn't lie. She set down her cup. I was 21 years old, first in my family to go to college, let alone the Naval Academy. I'd fought for everything I had, and he looked at me like I was nothing. Catherine nodded slowly. And now he is nothing. Without you, he'd be dead. His daughter would be dead. So you're making him wait, making him feel what you felt. Powerless. Yes, I understand that. If I were you, I might do the same thing. Catherine leaned forward. But here's what you need to know. David left the Navy because he was broken. Not by the work, but by who he'd become. He spent 5 years rebuilding himself, learning to be a better person, a better father. And he was getting there, slowly, but he was getting there. That's not my problem. No, it's not, but Emma is. Catherine's voice hardened. My daughter almost died in that storm. She's having nightmares. She won't sleep unless David is in the room. She wakes up crying, asking if we're going under the water again. Her eyes glistened. David is holding her together right now. And if you destroy him, if you let this Article 92 stand when you could stop it, you're destroying her too. It was a low blow, and effective. You're asking me to sacrifice my career for your daughter's emotional well-being? I'm asking you to let my husband help you the way you helped us. Not because he deserves it, not because it's fair, but because spite is a poor foundation for any decision. Maya felt the anger flare again. You don't get to tell me what I should base my decisions on. No, I don't. But I can tell you what I see. A woman who's spent 10 years carrying a grudge. A woman who's so focused on revenge that she can't see she's becoming exactly what she hates. Someone who holds power over another person and uses it to make them feel small. The words landed like bullets. Maya stood abruptly. This conversation is over. Maya. Lieutenant Commander Reeves, and don't contact me again. She walked out into the afternoon, her hands shaking. Not from anger, from the horrible possibility that Catherine Harlow might be right. That evening, Maya received a text from David Harlow. I'm not going to call my father. Whatever happens, you earned your career. You shouldn't need my help to keep it. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it. The investigation into Maya's actions moved quickly. By the end of the week, she'd been interviewed 3 times. Once by Captain Morrison, once by the base's legal officer, and once by an investigator from Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Each time, she'd told the same story. She'd heard a child in distress and responded. None of them asked if she'd do it again. None of them needed to. Rachel Torres worked on her defense during every spare moment, building an argument based on the immediate threat to civilian lives. We'll argue that you had reasonable grounds to believe that delay would result in death or serious injury, Rachel explained over dinner at Maya's small apartment off base. The Coast Guard was overwhelmed. You had the means and training to respond. Any reasonable officer would have done the same. Any reasonable officer would have followed protocol and reported it up the chain of command. Maybe, but hindsight is 20/20, and you didn't have the luxury of hindsight. Rachel stabbed her chopsticks into her lo mein. The real problem is Morrison. He's a by-the-book officer. He genuinely believes that discipline and protocol are what keep the Navy functioning. To him, what you did isn't heroic, it's dangerous precedent. Maya pushed her food around her plate. She hadn't had much appetite since the suspension. What are my chances? Honestly? 50-50. It could go either way. Rachel paused. Unless someone with influence speaks up on your behalf. You mean unless David Harlow makes a phone call? I mean unless someone, anyone, with the Admiral's ear vouches for your character and judgment. Maya's phone buzzed. Emma Harlow had sent a drawing, stick figures standing in the rain, one with a Navy uniform pulling smaller figures from a car. Above it, in careful child's handwriting, "Thank you for saving us. Love, Emma." Damn it, Maya muttered. What? She showed Rachel the phone. Rachel's expression softened. She's 7 years old and she's sending thank you drawings. Maya, whatever issues you have with her father, that kid is innocent. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're punishing an entire family for something one man did a decade ago. Maya set down her phone. Catherine said something similar, that I was becoming what I hate. Is she wrong? The question hung in the air between them. I don't know anymore, Maya admitted. I spent 10 years proving David Harlow wrong, making rank, earning commendations, becoming exactly the officer he said I couldn't be. And now I finally have the chance to make him see what he did to me, to make him feel it, and everyone's telling me I should just let it go. No one's saying let it go. We're saying don't let it consume you. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. You're a good officer, a good person. Don't sacrifice that for revenge. After Rachel left, Maya sat alone in her apartment, staring at Emma's drawing. The child had drawn her so much taller than everyone else, a protector towering over the family she'd saved, the hero of the story. Heroes didn't use traumatized children as weapons. Heroes didn't prolong someone's suffering just to prove a point. But Maya wasn't sure she was a hero. She'd spent so long fighting to be recognized, to be valued, that she'd forgotten how to be merciful. Her phone rang. David Harlow. She almost didn't answer. Almost. "Lieutenant Commander," he said. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. What do you want?" "To talk. In person, if you'll allow it." "Why?" "Because Catherine was right. I've been waiting for you to ask for my help, but that's not fair. You shouldn't have to ask for something you've already earned. So I'm offering. Not because I want to ease my conscience, but because it's the right thing to do." Maya closed her eyes. "Your wife said you're broken, that you left the Navy because of who you'd become. That's true. What broke you?" He was quiet for a long moment, knowing that I'd spent years trying to break other people, that I'd used my power not to build up the officers under my command, but to tear them down so I could feel better about my own inadequacy. I was a coward, Maya, and I hurt good people because of it, including me, especially you, because you were everything I should have been and wasn't. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. There was no defensiveness, no justification, just acknowledgement. "I don't know if I can accept your help," Maya said. "Not because I don't need it, but because accepting it means forgiving you. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to do something right, to use whatever influence I still have to help someone who deserves it." He paused. "My father is flying in tomorrow. He's heard about what happened, about all of it. He wants to meet you. Admiral James Harlow, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, one of the most powerful men in the Navy. Why? Because I told him what you did, what I did, and what I'm trying to do now to make it right." Maya's heart raced. "David, think about it. That's all I ask. If you decide you want to meet him, let me know. No pressure, no expectations." He hung up before she could respond. Maya sat in the dark apartment, Emma's drawing still glowing on her phone screen. Outside, Norfolk was rebuilding from the storm. Trees were being cleared, power lines restored, life returning to normal. But some storms left damage that couldn't be fixed with chainsaws and new shingles. Some storms changed the landscape permanently. The question was whether she'd let this one change her. That night, Maya dreamed of the river. But in the dream, she was the one drowning, and David Harlow stood on the shore, watching. She screamed for help, but he just stood there, silent and still. When she finally went under, when the water filled her lungs and everything went dark, she heard him whisper, "You never belonged here anyway." She woke gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat. It was 3 a.m. She picked up her phone and typed a message to David Harlow. "I'll meet your father, Tuesday at 1400, Naval Station Norfolk, Building 277. She hit send before she could change her mind. His response came within minutes. "Thank you for everything." Maya deleted the message and tried to go back to sleep. She couldn't. Admiral James Harlow looked exactly like his son would in 20 years, trim, distinguished, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He wore his uniform with the casual ease of someone who'd been in the service for 35 years, ribbons covering his chest like a roadmap of a career that had taken him from the Persian Gulf to the Pentagon. Maya stood at attention in the conference room, hyper-aware of every detail. Her uniform pressed to perfection, her posture rigid, her expression neutral. This wasn't just a meeting. This was judgment. "At ease, Lieutenant Commander," Admiral Harlow said. His voice was deep, authoritative, but not unkind. "Please, sit." Maya sat. David Harlow was there too, in civilian clothes, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Between them sat a third person Maya hadn't expected, Captain Morrison. "I've asked Captain Morrison to join us," the Admiral explained, "because this conversation concerns your future at this command, and he should be part of that discussion." He folded his hands on the table. "My son has told me what happened, both during the storm and at the academy. I've also reviewed your service record. It's exemplary. Thank you, sir. Which makes this situation particularly complicated." The Admiral's gaze sharpened. "You violated direct orders. In doing so, you saved 3 lives, including my granddaughter. Captain Morrison wants to proceed with an Article 92 charge. My son thinks you shouldn't need help from him or anyone else, because your actions speak for themselves. And you," he leaned back, "you've been sitting on a phone call that could end this entire matter, but you haven't made it. Why?" The question was direct and unavoidable. Maya chose her words carefully. "Because I wanted Commander Harlow, your son, to understand what it feels like to need something from someone who has the power to help but chooses not to." Silence filled the room. Morrison looked like he wanted to interrupt, but the Admiral held up a hand. "Go on," the Admiral said. 10 years ago, your son told me I didn't belong in the Navy, that I'd wash out. He made my first year at the academy unnecessarily difficult because he believed I was inferior." Maya's voice remained steady. "I've spent a decade proving him wrong, and when I pulled him out of that river, when I saved his life, I finally had something he needed, and I wanted him to feel that powerlessness, that uncertainty." David Harlow looked like he'd been struck. "That's revenge," Morrison said flatly. "Yes, sir, it is." The Admiral studied her for a long moment. "You're honest. I'll give you that. Most officers would dress it up in prettier language, duty, justice, principles, but you're calling it what it is. Revenge." "Yes, sir. And now, having had time to think, to feel that power, what do you want?" Maya met David Harlow's eyes. He looked older than he had a week ago, more tired, more human. "I want," Maya said slowly, "to know that Commander Harlow understands what he did, not just intellectually, but deeply. I want to know that he'll never treat another young officer the way he treated me, that he'll use whatever influence he still has to build people up rather than tear them down. And if he promises that, then I want him to make the phone call, to help me save my career, not because I'm asking, but because it's right." David Harlow leaned forward. "I understand. All of it. what I did to you, what it cost. And I swear to you, Maya, Lieutenant Commander Reeves, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be better than I was, to help others the way you helped my family, to never again use power to hurt people. The Admiral turned to Morrison. Captain? Morrison's jaw was tight. With respect, sir, this sets a dangerous precedent. If we allow Lieutenant Commander Reeves to violate orders without consequence simply because the outcome was positive, we undermine the entire command structure. I'm not suggesting no consequence, the Admiral said. I'm suggesting we consider context. The Lieutenant Commander used her judgment in an emergency situation. She saved 3 civilian lives. Yes, she violated protocol. But protocol exists to serve the mission, not the other way around. Sir, let me finish, Captain. The Admiral's voice hardened slightly. I've spent 35 years in this Navy. I've seen officers follow orders to the letter and watch people die because they were too afraid to deviate from the book. I've also seen officers exercise judgment and initiative and save lives. Lieutenant Commander Reeves is the latter. That kind of officer is exactly what we need. Morrison looked like he wanted to argue further but thought better of it. The Admiral turned back to Maya. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to speak with the JAG and recommend that the Article 92 charge be reduced to a non-judicial punishment, a letter of reprimand in your file. You'll serve a week of extra duty and return to full status. Your career will continue. The letter will remain, a reminder that actions have consequences, but it won't destroy what you've built. It was more than Maya had hoped for, less than she deserved, exactly what was fair. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. The letter stays in your file for 3 years. It might affect future promotions. You'll have to work twice as hard to prove yourself all over again. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. But something tells me you're used to that. Yes, sir. Dismissed. Maya stood, saluted, and turned to leave. Lieutenant Commander. She stopped. Admiral Harlow's voice was quieter now. My son was wrong about you. I'm glad he finally sees that, and I'm glad Emma has you to look up to. The words hit harder than Maya expected. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left the room. Outside, the Virginia sun was bright and warm. Maya walked across the base, her mind reeling. It was over. Not perfectly, not completely, but over. She'd gotten justice, of a sort. But as she walked, she realized something that made her stop dead in the middle of the sidewalk. She didn't feel satisfied. She felt empty. 10 years of anger. 10 years of proving herself, 10 years of carrying David Harlow's doubt like a weight on her shoulders. And now that it was lifted, she didn't feel lighter. She felt hollow, as if the anger had been holding her together, and without it, she might simply collapse. Her phone buzzed. Rachel Torres. I heard. Good outcome. Drinks tonight to celebrate? Maya typed back. Rain check. Need to think. She walked to the waterfront and sat on a bench overlooking the piers. Destroyers and carriers moved slowly through the harbor, returning from deployment or departing for new missions. The Navy's rhythm, constant and eternal. Somewhere behind her she heard footsteps. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. David Harlow sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. I meant what I said in there, he said after a while. About being better. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure I believe me yet. Maya turned to look at him. Then why say it? Because Emma needs me to be better. Catherine needs me to be better. And maybe, somewhere deep down, I need me to be better. He stared out at the water. I've been thinking about that night in the river, about you pulling me out, even though you had every reason to leave me there. I'm not a murderer. No. But you're also not someone who leaves people behind. Even people who've hurt you. That's the difference between us, Maya. You became who you wanted to be despite what I said. I became who I was afraid I was because of what I said to others. They sat in silence, watching the ships. I don't forgive you, Maya finally said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But maybe someday I will. Forgive you, I mean. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. David Harlow smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. That's more than I deserve. Yes, Maya agreed. It is. He stood to leave, then paused. Emma wanted me to give you something. He handed Maya a small box. Inside was a drawing, carefully laminated, the same one Emma had texted, but now preserved, protected. On the back, Catherine had written, "Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear Navy uniforms and save strangers in storms. Thank you for showing our daughter what real courage looks like." Maya felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, but crack, like ice beginning to thaw. "Tell Emma I said thank you," she said quietly. "I will." After David left, Maya sat with the drawing for a long time, watching the ships come and go. And for the first time in 10 years, she felt something other than anger. She felt hope. The letter of reprimand arrived 3 days later, official and final. Maya read it once, folded it carefully, and filed it away. 3 years. That's how long it would remain in her record, a permanent reminder that she'd chosen conscience over protocol. She could live with that. Returning to duty felt both familiar and strange. Her colleagues treated her differently now, not with disdain, but with a careful respect that bordered on wariness. She'd broken the rules and gotten away with it. She'd faced down an admiral's son and emerged intact. She'd proven that she was willing to sacrifice her career for what she believed was right. Some saw her as a hero, others as a loose cannon. Maya tried not to care about either label. Lieutenant Parker met her in the operations center on her first day back. He handed her a cup of coffee, still terrible military coffee, but she'd missed it, and said simply, "Welcome back, Commander. Good to be back. For what it's worth, I would have done the same thing, gone after that family. But you wouldn't have gotten caught." Parker grinned. "True, I'm better at covering my tracks." The work absorbed her quickly. Post-hurricane recovery meant double shifts, coordination with FEMA and local authorities, endless paperwork. Maya threw herself into it with the same intensity she brought to everything else. Work was safe. Work was clear. Work didn't require her to examine the complicated mess of emotions that the Harlow situation had left behind. But some things couldn't be avoided forever. Catherine Harlow showed up at the base 2 weeks after Maya's return to duty. She waited at the Civilian Visitor Center, and when Maya arrived, summoned by a confused security guard, she was sitting calmly with a coffee and a book. "Mrs. Harlow." "Catherine." She closed the book. "I hope you don't mind the visit. I called your office, but they said you were busy." "Always busy? I'll keep this brief then." Catherine reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "Emma wanted to give you this herself, but David thought it might be better if I delivered it. She's been struggling since the storm. Nightmares, anxiety. She won't go near water." Maya took the envelope. Inside was another drawing, more complex than the first. Emma had drawn Maya in full Navy uniform, but this time she wasn't rescuing anyone. She was just standing there, smiling, with Emma holding her hand. Above them, Emma had written, "When I grow up, I want to be brave like you." "She talks about you constantly," Catherine continued. "Her hero, the woman who saved her daddy. She wants to join the Navy when she's old enough." Maya felt something twist in her chest. "Catherine, I'm not asking you to be a part of her life. I know that's complicated given your history with David, but I wanted you to know that what you did, not just saving us, but showing mercy afterward, it matters. It's changing my daughter's understanding of what strength looks like. I didn't show mercy. I delayed revenge. You let David help you. You could have refused. You could have let your career burn just to prove a point, but you didn't. That's mercy, Maya, even if you don't call it that." After Catherine left, Maya stared at Emma's drawing for a long time. The little girl had drawn her smiling, happy, at peace. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd felt any of those things. That evening, she drove to Rachel Torres' apartment. Rachel answered the door in sweats and an old Georgetown Law t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. "Please tell me you brought wine," Rachel said. "2 bottles and Thai food. You're a goddess." They ate on Rachel's couch, some mindless reality show playing in the background. After her second glass of wine, Maya finally said, "I think I made a mistake." "Which one? You make so many." "Letting David help me. Taking the deal with the Admiral. I should have fought the Article 92, proven I was right." Rachel set down her wine. "And probably lost, and destroyed your career, and spent the next 10 years bitter and angry instead of just the last 10. But at least I'd have my integrity. Oh, please. Integrity doesn't pay the bills. Integrity doesn't make you happy. Integrity is just pride dressed up in fancier clothes. Rachel poked her in the shoulder. You made the smart call, the mature call. Don't second guess it now. Then why do I feel like I sold out? Because you spent a decade preparing for a battle, and instead of fighting it, you negotiated peace. It's anticlimactic. But anticlimactic isn't the same as wrong. Maya leaned back against the couch. Emma Harlow wants to join the Navy because of me. Of course she does. You're a certified badass who pulled her out of a sinking car during a hurricane. But what if she joins because she thinks it's all heroics and glory? What if she gets someone like David Harlow as a commanding officer and they break her? Then she'll either wash out or she'll fight back like you did. You can't protect her from the world, Maya. You can just show her it's possible to survive it. They finished the wine in comfortable silence. Later, walking back to her car, Maya checked her phone. A new message from David Harlow. Emma's therapist suggested she might benefit from talking to you. No pressure. Just wanted to extend the offer. Maya stared at the message. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. She wasn't a therapist. She wasn't even fully healed herself. She had no business being anyone's role model, least of all a traumatized 7-year-old. But then she thought about Emma's drawing. The way the little girl had held on to her in the river, trusting completely. The way she'd written brave and careful letters, as if bravery was something real and attainable. Maya typed back, "I'll think about it." David's response was immediate. "That's all I ask." 3 days later, Maya found herself at a child psychologist's office in Virginia Beach. Dr. Sarah Chen was in her 40s, with kind eyes and an office decorated with colorful fish mobiles and beanbag chairs. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Chen said. "Emma talks about you often. I thought it might help her processing if she could see you, talk to you, in a safe environment. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. You're the person she's asking for. That makes you exactly the right person." Emma was in the waiting room with Catherine. When she saw Maya, her face lit up. "You came." "I came." The session was awkward and beautiful. Emma showed Maya more drawings. She talked about the storm, her voice shaking but growing stronger as she went. She asked questions. Why was Maya so brave? Had she been scared? What made her become a sailor? Maya answered honestly. Yes, she'd been scared. Yes, being a sailor was hard, but it was worth it because sometimes you got to help people. "Like you helped us," Emma said. "Like I helped you." At the end of the hour, Emma hugged her. It was unexpected and fierce, this small person clinging to Maya like a lifeline. "Thank you for not letting us die," Emma whispered. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Driving home, Maya realized something that should have been obvious all along. This wasn't about David Harlow anymore. It had never been just about him. It was about what people did with second chances, whether they used them to become better or just to avoid consequences. David was trying to become better. Emma was learning what bravery looked like. Catherine was rebuilding her family. And Maya? She was learning that letting go of anger didn't mean forgetting. It just meant making room for something else. Something that felt suspiciously like peace. Winter came to Virginia slowly, the temperatures dropping in increments as November gave way to December. Maya threw herself into her work with renewed focus. The letter of reprimand in her file became a strange kind of motivation, proof that she was willing to do what was right even when it cost her something. Captain Morrison never mentioned the incident again, but his treatment of her shifted. He gave her more complex assignments, more responsibility, testing her judgment, seeing if she'd learned anything or if she'd just gotten lucky. Maya was determined to prove it was the former. The Harlow family became an unexpected part of her life. Not close exactly, but present. Emma sent drawings every few weeks. Catherine texted occasionally with updates on Emma's therapy. David remained distant, respectful of the boundaries Maya had set, but sent a brief message on Thanksgiving. "Thank you for everything. We're grateful beyond words." Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. In December, Admiral Harlow requested a meeting. Maya arrived at his temporary office at Norfolk, expecting another evaluation, another test. Instead, she found him in civilian clothes, packing up files. "Lieutenant Commander, thank you for coming." "Sir, I'm rotating to a new assignment. Pentagon. Strategic planning. He closed a box and set it aside. Before I leave, I wanted to speak with you about your future. Maya's pulse quickened. My future, sir? You have 3 years until that letter of reprimand falls off your record. 3 years during which your next promotion will be scrutinized more carefully than most. The Admiral leaned against his desk. I want to ensure you have opportunities during that time to prove yourself. To show that your judgment, while unorthodox, is sound. I appreciate that, sir. I'm recommending you for a position with the Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief Unit. It's a 2-year assignment, coordinating Navy response to natural disasters and humanitarian crises. Lots of on-the-ground decision-making. Lots of situations where protocol has to bend to reality. It was perfect and terrifying. That's unexpected, sir. You saved 3 lives by breaking protocol. Imagine what you could do if breaking protocol was part of the job description. The Admiral smiled slightly. My son may have been wrong about you, Lieutenant Commander, but I wasn't. I always knew you belonged in the Navy. I just didn't know where until now. Maya felt something shift inside her. A weight lifting, a door opening. When would this assignment start? March, after you complete winter training rotations here. It'll be based out of San Diego, which means leaving Norfolk. Leaving Norfolk. Leaving the place where she'd spent a decade building her career. Leaving the ghosts of David Harlow's words and her own anger. I'll take it, Maya said. Good. I'll forward your orders by end of week. The Admiral extended his hand. It's been an honor, Commander. Maya shook his hand, feeling the weight of the moment. This man had the power to destroy her career. Instead, he was giving her a second chance. A better chance. Thank you, sir, for everything. Thank your son. He's the one who convinced me you deserved more than punishment. He said you taught him what real integrity looks like, making hard choices and living with the consequences. After the meeting, Maya walked through the base, her mind spinning. San Diego. A new assignment. A chance to start fresh while carrying the lessons of the past with her. She found herself at the waterfront again, the same bench where she'd sat with David Harlow weeks earlier. The water was gray and cold, winter settling in for its long stay. Her phone rang. Emma Harlow. Hello? Commander Reeves? Emma's voice was excited, breathless. Mama said I could call you. Guess what? What, sweetheart? I'm not scared of water anymore. Dr. Chen took me to the pool and I went swimming and I wasn't even scared. Maya felt her throat tighten. That's amazing, Emma. She said it's because I remembered that you saved us from the water. That water isn't bad. It just was scary that one time. And if I can be brave like you, I can do anything. You are brave. You always were. Can I ask you something? Anything. When you were scared, like really scared in the water, how did you keep going? Maya thought about that night. The current pulling at her legs. The darkness. The knowledge that if she failed, 3 people would die. I remembered why I was there, Maya said slowly. I remembered that someone needed help. And I decided that was more important than being scared. Oh, Emma was quiet for a moment. That makes sense. Daddy says you're the bravest person he knows. Something shifted in Maya's chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Your daddy is pretty brave too, Maya said. He made some mistakes, but he's trying to be better. That takes courage. I know. He told me about what he said to you at school. That was mean. Yes, it was. But you saved him anyway. That's really brave. Maya smiled despite herself. You know what, Emma? I think you might be the wisest person I know. Emma giggled. I'm only 7. Exactly. After the call ended, Maya sat watching the water until the sun set and the air grew too cold to bear. Then she drove home, made dinner, and did something she hadn't done in years. She wrote in a journal. December 15th. I got new orders today. San Diego, humanitarian assistance, a chance to use what I've learned, both the protocols and when to break them. Emma Harlow isn't scared of water anymore. She called to tell me herself. She's 7 years old and she's already braver than I was at 21. I think I'm starting to understand what forgiveness means. It doesn't mean forgetting what David Harlow did. It means not letting it define me anymore. It means seeing him as human, flawed and broken and trying, just like everyone else. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some wounds heal with scars. But scars are proof you survived. Proof you're stronger than what tried to break you. 3 more years until the letter of reprimand disappears. 3 years to prove myself all over again. But this time, I'm not proving anything to David Harlow, or Captain Morrison, or Admiral Harlow, or anyone else. I'm proving it to myself. Maya closed the journal and went to bed. For the first time in months, she didn't dream of drowning. She dreamed of swimming. The months between December and March moved quickly. Maya completed her winter training rotations, scored top marks in every evaluation, and prepared for her move to San Diego. She sold most of her furniture, donated clothes she hadn't worn in years, and slowly dismantled the life she'd built in Virginia. It was harder than she expected. Norfolk had been home for a decade. Every street held memories. Every corner of the base reminded her of who she'd been and who she'd become. But it was time to move forward. Rachel Torres threw her a going-away party in February. Half the JAG office showed up, along with officers Maya had served with over the years. Lieutenant Parker gave a speech that was equal parts roast and tribute. Captain Morrison even made an appearance, shook her hand, and said, "Make us proud, Commander." "Yes, sir." As the party wound down, Rachel pulled her aside. "You're really okay with this? Leaving?" "I am." "No regrets about the Harlow situation?" Maya considered the question. "Some, but fewer than I expected. I think I needed to learn that holding on to anger is exhausting, and that forgiveness doesn't make you weak, it makes you free. Listen to you, all wise and mature. What happened to the Maya who wanted to make David Harlow suffer? She got tired, and she met a 7-year-old who reminded her what actually matters." Rachel hugged her tightly. "San Diego's lucky to have you." "Norfolk's lucky to be rid of me." "Damn right." 2 weeks before her departure, David Harlow called. "I heard about your new orders, humanitarian assistance. That's perfect for you. Your father recommended me. He's good at recognizing talent." Eventually, David paused. "Emma wanted me to ask if you'd come to dinner before you leave. A proper thank you. Catherine's cooking. Emma's been practicing origami cranes all week to decorate the table." Every instinct told Maya to refuse. To keep that boundary, to not get more entangled with the Harlow family than she already was. But then she thought about Emma's drawings, about Catherine's kindness, about David's genuine efforts to become better. "What time?" Maya asked. The dinner was at the Harlow's home in Virginia Beach, a modest colonial with a view of the ocean. Emma answered the door, practically vibrating with excitement. "You came! Look, I made cranes!" She pointed to the dining room table, which was covered in colorful paper cranes. "Mama says they're for good luck and peace." "They're beautiful, Emma." Catherine emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "Maya, thank you for coming. I hope you like salmon." "Love it." David appeared from upstairs, looking nervous. "Commander Reeves, welcome." It was awkward at first, too formal, too careful. But Emma's chatter filled the silences, and Catherine's warmth smoothed the rough edges. By the time they sat down to eat, Maya found herself relaxing. The food was excellent. The conversation flowed easier than expected. Emma showed Maya her improved swimming skills via enthusiastic demonstration in the living room. Catherine talked about her work at the hospital. David remained quiet, letting his wife and daughter carry the evening. After dinner, while Catherine put Emma to bed, David and Maya ended up on the back deck. The ocean stretched dark and endless before them, waves rhythmic against the shore. "Thank you for coming," David said. "I know it wasn't easy. Nothing about this has been easy." "No." He was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about that night, about what you said, that you wanted me to feel powerless the way you did. I shouldn't have said that." "No, you should have. It was honest, and it was true." He turned to face her. "I did feel powerless. For the first time in my privileged life, I needed something and had no way to get it except to ask someone I'd wronged. It was humbling and necessary." "Did it change you? Really?" "I think so. I'm trying to let it change me." He smiled sadly. "Catherine says change is a process, not an event. That I can't just decide to be better and have it happen overnight. I have to choose it every day." "She's right." "I know." David looked out at the ocean. "Emma told me you said I was brave for trying to be better. I don't know if that's true, but I'm grateful you said it." She needed to hear that her father isn't perfect, but he's trying. We're all trying. Some of us are better at it than others. Catherine rejoined them, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the cold. Emma wants to give you something before you go. Inside, Emma presented Maya with a box. Inside was a paper crane, the most perfect, carefully folded crane Maya had ever seen. Mama says if you fold 1,000 cranes, you get a wish, Emma said seriously. I've only folded 47 so far, but this one is special. I made it for you. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Emma, this is beautiful. It's so you remember us, when you're in California saving other people. I could never forget you. Emma hugged her, and Maya held on tight, feeling the weight of this small person who'd changed her life in ways she was still understanding. Driving home that night, Maya placed the paper crane on her dashboard. It was delicate, perfect, a reminder that some things, some people, were worth the effort of rebuilding, of forgiving, of letting go. Her phone buzzed. Rachel, how'd it go? Maya typed back. Better than expected. Maybe that's how healing works. One awkward dinner at a time. Rachel, proud of you. Maya, thanks for everything. Rachel, go save the world, Commander, and send pictures from San Diego. 2 weeks later, Maya loaded her car with the essentials, clothes, her service records, Emma's paper crane, and drove out of Norfolk for the last time. In her rearview mirror, Naval Station Norfolk grew smaller, fading into memory. Ahead, the highway stretched toward a future she was finally ready to embrace. The drive to San Diego took 5 days. Maya took her time, stopping at places she'd never seen, the Blue Ridge Mountains, Memphis, New Mexico's desert landscape. She was in no rush. The Navy would be there when she arrived. Her new assignment would wait. For the first time in her adult life, she let herself exist in the present moment without constantly preparing for the next battle. On the 4th night, somewhere in Arizona, her phone rang. David Harlow. Maya, I'm sorry to call so late. Something in his voice made her pulse quicken. What's wrong? It's Emma. His voice cracked. She's in the hospital. Accident at school. Head injury. They're saying it's serious. The world tilted. What happened? Playground equipment. She fell from the monkey bars. Hit her head. She's been unconscious for 6 hours. Catherine is... We're both... He couldn't finish. Maya pulled over to the side of the highway. Which hospital? Centara Norfolk General. But Maya, you don't have to. You're on your way to San Diego. Text me the room number. I'll be there tomorrow. Maya. She's my friend, David. I'm coming. She hung up and stared at the desert darkness. Emma. Unconscious. Head injury. The little girl who'd folded her a perfect crane. Who'd drawn pictures of Maya as a hero. Who'd learned to swim again because she believed bravery was real. Maya turned the car around. She drove through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. By sunrise, she was in Texas. By noon, Arkansas. By evening, she crossed into Virginia. She arrived at the hospital at 2 a.m., looking like hell. Rumpled clothes, unwashed hair, eyes red from crying and caffeine. David and Catherine were in the waiting room. They looked worse. Maya. Catherine stood surprised. You came back. Of course I came back. David's face crumbled. They're saying brain swelling. Possible surgery. She hasn't woken up since... He couldn't continue. Maya took his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took Catherine's too. Tell me everything. They talked for hours. The accident, the ambulance, the waiting, the terrible silence of a child who was usually so full of noise and life. She had your crane, Catherine said quietly. In her pocket, when the paramedics brought her in. They gave it to me. She pulled out the slightly crumpled paper crane. She carried it everywhere. Maya felt something break inside her. At 4 a.m., a doctor emerged. Mr. and Mrs. Harlow. Emma's awake. The relief was physical. Catherine sobbed. David nearly collapsed. Maya steadied him. She's asking for someone, the doctor continued, consulting her notes. Commander Reeves? 3 heads turned to Maya. She woke up and said she needed to talk to the brave lady, the doctor explained. We weren't sure who she meant. Maya followed them to Emma's room. The little girl looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and IV lines. But her eyes were open, alert. "Maya," Emma said. Her voice was weak but clear. "You came." "Of course I came, sweetheart. I knew you would. You always come when people need you." Maya sat beside the bed, taking Emma's small hand. "How are you feeling?" "My head hurts. And the doctors are being annoying." Emma's expression turned serious. "But I wasn't scared, even when I was falling. I remembered what you said about being brave because someone needed help. So I was brave." "You were very brave. And I had your crane. For luck." Emma squeezed Maya's hand. "Did it work? Is that why I'm okay?" "That's exactly why you're okay." Emma smiled. Then her eyes drifted closed. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay. I'm not going anywhere." Maya stayed through the morning as Emma slept and doctors ran tests. She stayed through the afternoon as Catherine and David took turns keeping vigil. She stayed through the evening as Emma woke again, ate Jell-O, and demanded to know if Maya had really driven all the way back from California. "Not quite California yet," Maya admitted. "I was only in Arizona. That's still really far. Not far enough to keep me away." 3 days later, Emma was discharged with a concussion, strict rest orders, and instructions to follow up with specialists. Maya had called her new command in San Diego, explaining the situation. They'd been understanding. Her start date could be pushed back 2 weeks. On the day of Emma's discharge, Maya helped get her settled at home. Emma insisted on showing Maya her room, pointing out every stuffed animal and drawing with the enthusiasm of someone who'd briefly forgotten the world existed and was now determined to remember every detail. That evening, after Emma was asleep, David found Maya on the back deck. "You came back," he said simply. "Yes." "Why?" "You'd already done enough." "More than enough. You were starting a new life." Maya considered the question. In the past few days, she'd thought about it a lot, about why she'd turned her car around without hesitation, why Emma's voice on the phone had mattered more than her new orders. "Because," Maya said finally, "holding on to anger takes energy. So does forgiveness. But love is effortless. And somewhere in these past months, I stopped seeing Emma as your daughter and started seeing her as my friend. And you don't abandon friends when they need you." David's eyes glistened. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not. But Emma does. And Catherine does. And honestly," Maya turned to face him, "you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. Hell, you're not even the same person you were 3 months ago. You've earned the chance to be better." "I'm trying." "I know. I see it." Maya paused. "When I pulled you out of that river, I wanted revenge. I wanted you to suffer the way you'd made me suffer. But Emma changed that. She showed me that the best revenge isn't making someone pay for their past. It's proving that you're bigger than their worst expectations, that you can be the person they said you couldn't be, and that you can do it without becoming cruel in the process." David nodded slowly. "I told Emma about what I said to you at Annapolis, about how wrong I was. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. She needs to know that people make mistakes, that being wrong doesn't mean you can't grow, and that sometimes the people you hurt end up being the ones who save you in more ways than one." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ocean. "The crane worked," David said after a while. "Emma's luck, your luck, whatever magic was in that paper. No magic, just 2 people choosing to be better than their worst moments. Is that what we are now? Better?" Maya thought about the journey, from the academy to the river to this deck, from anger to revenge to something approaching peace. "We're getting there," she said, "one day at a time." Girl was truly okay before leaving for San Diego. Emma made remarkable progress. Her headaches faded, her energy returned, and within days she was demanding to go back to school, a request her parents firmly denied. On Maya's last day in Virginia, the Harlow family came to see her off. They met at the waterfront, the place where so much had changed. Emma presented Maya with a new crane, this one folded from gold paper. "For your new adventure," she said solemnly. "So you remember us. I could never forget you, sweetheart. And when I'm 18, I'm going to join the Navy, just like you. And maybe you'll be my commanding officer and you can teach me to be brave." Maya knelt down to Emma's level. "You already are brave. You don't need me to teach you that. But I hope I am your commanding officer someday. The Navy would be lucky to have you. Emma hugged her fiercely. Thank you for saving us, and for being my friend. Thank you for teaching me what real courage looks like. Catherine hugged her next. Take care of yourself, Maya, and stay in touch. Emma will never forgive you if you don't. I will, I promise. David was last. He extended his hand, then seemed to think better of it and pulled her into a brief, awkward hug. Thank you. For everything. For being better than I deserved. Be good to them, Maya said quietly. Be the father and husband they deserve. Every day. I promise. Maya got in her car, placed the gold crane next to the original one on her dashboard, and pulled away. In her rearview mirror, the Harlow family waved until she turned the corner, and they disappeared. The drive to San Diego was different this time. Lighter. Maya listened to music, stopped at roadside attractions, took pictures of sunsets. She called Rachel and told her about Emma's recovery. She called her grandmother in Atlanta and promised to visit soon. She didn't call it closure. Closure implied an ending, and this didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a transformation. San Diego welcomed her with sunshine and possibility. Her new assignment was everything Admiral Harlow had promised: challenging, unpredictable, demanding constant judgment calls between protocol and reality. Maya thrived. 6 months into her new role, she coordinated relief efforts after an earthquake in Mexico, working 18-hour days to evacuate civilians and deliver aid. A year in, she led a team responding to flooding in the Philippines, making split-second decisions that saved dozens of lives. The letter of reprimand in her file became a footnote. A reminder, yes, but also evidence that sometimes the right call wasn't the safe call. Emma sent pictures and drawings regularly. Catherine texted updates. David wrote occasional emails. Never long, never intrusive, just checking in. Maya responded to all of them, maintaining the connection without letting it define her. 2 years into her San Diego assignment, Maya received a letter. The letter of reprimand had been formally removed from her record. Her promotion to commander was approved. Admiral Harlow, now working at the Pentagon, had written a commendation noting her exceptional judgment under pressure and unwavering commitment to humanitarian service. Rachel called to congratulate her. You did it. You proved them all wrong. No, Maya said, looking at the 2 paper cranes that still sat on her desk. I proved myself right. There's a difference. Fair enough. So what's next for the great commander Maya Reeves? More of the same. More disasters, more decisions, more chances to help people. Sounds exhausting. It is, and it's perfect. That night, Maya sat on her balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean and wrote in her journal. 3 years since the storm. 3 years since I pulled David Harlow out of the river. I thought saving him would give me closure on everything he'd put me through. Instead, it gave me something better. Perspective. I learned that revenge is empty, that anger is exhausting, that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's behavior, it's about refusing to let their behavior define you. I learned that a 7-year-old girl folding paper cranes can teach you more about courage than any military training. I learned that sometimes the people who hurt you can become the people who show you who you want to be, by being examples of who you don't want to be, and then by showing you it's possible to change. David Harlow told me I'd never make it. He was wrong. But in a strange way, he was also right. The Maya Reeves he knew, the uncertain, angry, desperate to prove herself Maya, didn't make it. She evolved into someone stronger, someone more compassionate, someone who understands that real strength isn't holding on to grudges. It's knowing when to let them go. Emma Harlow wants to join the Navy in 11 years. If she does, I hope I'm the commanding officer who welcomes her. And I hope I treat her the way I wish I'd been treated, with respect, encouragement, and the absolute certainty that she belongs. 3 years since the storm. But the storm is over now, and I'm still standing. Epilogue. 11 years later, Lieutenant Emma Harlow stood at attention in front of Commander Maya Reeves at Naval Base San Diego. She was 29 now, fresh out of officer candidate school, her uniform crisp and her eyes bright with determination. Lieutenant Harlow, Maya said formally, welcome to humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Thank you, Commander. It's an honor to be here. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Your father tells me you've been preparing for this your whole life. Since I was 7, actually. Since a brave officer pulled my family out of a river during a hurricane and showed me what real courage looks like. That officer was just doing her job. No, ma'am. That officer broke protocol to save 3 strangers, and then she chose mercy over revenge. That's not just doing a job, that's being a hero. Maya felt the familiar sting of tears. You're going to do great things, Lieutenant. I can already tell. I hope so. I have an excellent role model. On Emma's desk, next to her computer and a photo of her parents, sat 2 paper cranes. 1 silver, 1 gold. A reminder of where she'd come from and where she was going. Heroes came in many forms. Some wore uniforms and broke protocols to save lives. Some folded paper cranes and taught their elders about forgiveness. Some made terrible mistakes and spent years becoming better. And some just showed up, day after day, choosing to be kind when the world gave them every reason to be cruel. Maya Reeves had learned that the best revenge wasn't destroying your enemies. It was proving them wrong by becoming exactly who you were meant to be. And then, if you were lucky, watching them become who they were meant to be too. Call to action. The narrator steps back, having told you the tale of Maya Reeves and David Harlow. A story of protocol and compassion, anger and forgiveness, storms weathered both in nature and in the human heart. Ask yourself, when have you held on to anger that exhausted you? When have you been given the power to hurt someone who wronged you, and what did you choose? The truth is, we're all drowning in rivers of our own making. Past hurts, old grudges, the weight of who we were supposed to be versus who we became. And sometimes, someone breaks protocol to pull us out. Sometimes, we're the ones doing the pulling. Real courage isn't about grand gestures. It's about the moment-by-moment choice to be better than your worst impulses, to see the humanity in people who failed to see yours, to fold paper cranes when the world is falling apart because small, beautiful things matter. Maya Reeves broke the rules to save 3 lives, but in doing so, she saved 4, including her own. What rules might you need to break? Not the important ones, the ones that protect people, but the ones that keep you locked in anger, trapped in past pain, unable to move forward into the person you're meant to become. The storm is coming. It always is. The question is, who will you be when the waters rise?